Part 3. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 21. Xuanhuan, the strongest among the supreme, came with a quasi-immortal sword, but he didn't even make waves, and the sword destroyed everyone. As for Taiyan Holy Land, they were so frightened that they invited the Supreme One out and closed the teleportation array. This is too scary. It's over, it's completely over. Not even the Supreme One dares to rival. Compressing the Holy Land, is this the terror of the Demon Lord? For a moment, everyone in the field was in despair. How to escape? No. Impossible, impossible. Ling Xian was trembling at this moment, completely trembling. How could even the Supreme One shrink back? This is unacceptable. Hey, I didn't expect that today, I would eventually die here. King Gluo, the saint of Xuanhuan Pavilion, sighed. Even Taiyan Holy Land, where the Supreme Being was still alive, avoided fighting. Their Xuanhuan Pavilion was no more than a supreme level force, and the strongest person in existence was no more than the Supreme One. Let alone the enemy. On the other side, Long Xian was stunned. The sword in her hand fell to the ground with a clang. The whole person was almost stunned. Supreme, Supreme, we are your descendants, your descendants. Huo Mingxian fell to his knees on the ground at this moment. Concubine Huo Xian also knelt down immediately, and the two of them kowtowed to the Demon Lord. Luo Demon Lord actually glanced at the two of them blankly and said, "Since you inherit my way, you should be my slave." He raised his hand, and Huo Mingxian and concubine Huo Xian suddenly screamed in agony. I saw that the souls of the two people were actually extracted. He injected black energy into their souls. Then, the soul resets. The two of them were frothing at the mouth and twitching all over. When they woke up again, they were neither humans nor ghosts, and became slaves of monsters. You can be the leader of my slaves. The Demon Lord's eyes fell on Huo Linger again. Huo Linger has already cultivated the Eye of Holy Fire, so of course she can't escape the Demon Lord's attention. At this moment, Huo Linger felt a terrifying aura coming to him, a force that made him desperate and irresistible. At this moment, she tried her best and suddenly waved her hand, and a scroll was suddenly thrown out. The moment the picture scroll appeared, it suddenly rose into the sky on its own. Wherever it passed, the monsters transformed from the black fire in the sky were directly destroyed into nothingness. A picture scroll hangs in the sky, and the picture scroll slowly opens. Everyone is watching at the same time. The scroll was finally unfolded, and inside the scroll was actually a Nirvana fire phoenix. Reborn from the infinite flame, bringing with it all kinds of holiness and all kinds of divine power. That fire phoenix is clearly like a living mythical beast. At the moment when the scroll was unfolded, an overwhelming aura of terror penetrated the land. In the secret realm, bricks and tiles cracked inch by inch, and the sky was full of monsters, all of which turned into nothingness. Destroy everything. At this moment, everyone seemed to be facing a terrifying immortal. No. What kind of power is this, beyond the Supreme? Is that a painting of a god? Thousands of people couldn't help but worship. Even the Luo Demon Lord had a green light pulsing in his eyes. He suddenly let out a roar, made a move with his big hand, and gathered countless G machines. In an instant, he merged with the terrifying black fire demon dragon in the sky, and roared towards the scroll. At this moment, the power of the black fire demonic dragon increased tenfold. However, the fire phoenix in the scroll suddenly let out a phoenix cry at this moment. Fengming together. An invisible true fire appeared. The black fire demon dragon rushed forward. As the phoenix roared and the real fire appeared, the huge and terrifying black fire dragon's body collapsed. Luo Demon Lord's body was blasted into nothingness. The world is suddenly clear and clear. In the secret realm, the magic circle is not there. Only one scroll stands proudly in the sky. The Nirvana fire phoenix in the scroll seems to be frightening the wild land. At this moment, the entire Kangli mountains were silent, and all the beasts were crawling and silent. Until a long time later. The phoenix roar went away, the real fire dissipated, but the extremely sacred aura enveloped this area. At this moment, everyone worshipped the scroll with such piety. God. The handwriting of the gods. This is a true manifestation. They were extremely excited, even more excited than when Supreme Luo's magic circle was broken. Until a long time later, the scroll slowly fell down and landed in Huo Linger's hands. Huo Linger looked at the scroll in his hand. At this moment, her delicate body was trembling, completely trembling. Next to them, Yukishui and Wei Yushin were dumbfounded, as if they were petrified. They knew that Senior Li was scary, but they didn't expect it to be so scary. The power of the Demon Lord forced the Holy Land to silence and the Supreme Lord retreated. However, Senior Li can kill him with just one stroke. Even if the power of the painting was only 1,000th or 1/10,000th, the Demon King would be destroyed. What kind of realm and skill is this? I can't even imagine, Senior Li. What kind of existence is he? Yukishui's scalp goes numb just thinking about it. Previously, I and others actually imagined Senior Li as being in the Mahayana stage, the venerable state. This is simply a huge blasphemy against Senior Li. Blasphemy. He was terrified. Fortunately, Senior Li was generous and didn't care about ants like himself and others. I know that nothing can escape the hands of Senior Li. Mu Qianing was very excited. She clenched her fists. As long as she thought of Li Fan, she felt that all the dangers in the world seemed to be unnecessary. At this moment, thousands of people in the secret realm were all looking at Huo Linger. Huo Linger, the owner of the painting. Old man, on behalf of the royal family of Feng Kingdom, pay homage to the goddess. An old man suddenly spoke with a trembling voice and knelt down to Huo Linger. As soon as he took the lead, everyone else followed. Meet the goddess! Meet the goddess! At this moment, all the forces present, big and small, knelt down and surrendered. Huo Linger was a little stunned for a moment. In Xuanhuan Pavilion, Ling Xian looked at Huo Linger, his eyes filled with complexity, humiliation, bitterness, envy. Next to him, King Gluo, the saint of Xuanhuan Pavilion, was silent for a moment, but she also saluted and said, "Greetings to the goddess." Meet the goddess. Even the saint of the supreme power, is so respectful. Qing Luo is also a very smart person. She can tell at a glance that Huo Linger's cultivation level is not very high. However, he was able to easily pass the level before, and then he killed the Demon Lord with another painting. This makes it clear that in Huo Linger behind you, there is an extremely terrifying existence. At the very least, they are all immortals. And that painting, even if it is an immortal treasure, must have been carefully tempered by the immortal. There are only a few in the entire Xiantian realm. To be able to come with such a painting, Huo Linger must be the immortal's personal disciple. The word goddess is not too much at all. Similarly, thousands of people in the field, from countless major forces, knelt down respectfully, because they were paying respect to the person behind Huo Linger. Even everyone in Longxian Zone was dumbfounded. At this moment, many people's mentality collapsed. Their knees softened and they knelt on the ground without daring to raise their heads. Longxian opened her eyes wide and looked at Huo Linger. Her mind went blank. It's over, I have caused great trouble to the sect. She once indulged her subordinates and slept with the leader of the Luo sect, that is, the servant of that existence. She once said that in front of Longxian Zone, the person behind Luo Zone was nothing. She had just captured Huo Linger and almost destroyed Huo Linger's cultivation with the spirit-breaking nail. The more she thought about it, the paler her face turned and her legs trembled. Thump. She knelt on the ground in one step, trembling, and said word by word, "Goddess, Xian is wrong. Please, Goddess, please forgive Xian and my sect." She lowered her head, and the sweat on her forehead was as low as soybeans. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 22. The dignified saint of Longxian sect was kneeling down to beg for mercy at this moment. Everyone's heart is very complicated. Longxian zone really caused a big trouble this time. Although it is a supreme force, if the immortal is angry, it will just turn into dust. Many people were talking in low voices. Longxian zone was very strong, but this time, he really hit the wall. Huo Ling'er took a deep breath and slowly came back to her senses. She felt like she was in a dream. Looking at the big forces kneeling in front of them, many of them were beings that the Fire Nation could not afford to offend. All this is because of Senior Li. She glanced at Longxian, and a cold look flashed in her eyes. Destroy your cultivation and wait for punishment. She didn't care how Longxian treated her just now, but she would never forget that the other party didn't even take Senior Li seriously. This cannot be tolerated. Hearing this, Longxian's expression changed drastically. He actually wanted to deprive himself of his cultivation. Her body was shaking and her mind was struggling. Once her cultivation is abolished, it means that she will become immortal. For a supremely powerful saint, this is simply unacceptable. However, if you don't abandon your cultivation, when the immortal is angry, the supreme being will die. At this time, Ling Xian reminded him with a complicated expression. Immortal? Longxian was desperate. She laughed miserably and took out the spirit-breaking nail. Then, it penetrated directly into his body. Destroy your cultivation. Everyone sighed. Get out. Huo Ling'er spoke, and Longxian backed away with a sad smile and left. Princess Ling'er, since that senior took action, our Taiyan Holy Land will never interfere here. Ling Xian saluted Huo Ling'er and said, farewell. King Gluo from Xuanhuan Pavilion also saluted and said goodbye. For a time, many people around him left. There is a transcendent being who takes action, and no one else is allowed to get involved here. There are also some forces waiting. Although they don't dare to fight for it, they also want to see what is in the coffin of this Demon King. Huo Ling'er and others turned to look at the Demon King's coffin. When I walked to the coffin, I saw that there was only a square piece of wood in the coffin. On top of the wooden block, there is a black flame. This is the supreme magic weapon of Supreme Li Huo, Tianhuo God Town. Someone spoke in surprise. Tianhuo Shenzhen is said to be made of 10,000 years of Xuanhuo wood, in which the Tao of Supreme Li Huo has been smelted throughout his life. If you get this thing, you can almost create another supreme being. However, this item has been invaded by evil spirits. Unless the immortal takes action, whoever uses it will die. Everyone was talking about it. Old sect master, what do you think? Huo Ling'er was a little unsure and asked Yu Qishui. Yu Qishui thought for a moment and said, Senior Li gave us the scroll and asked us to come here, I'm afraid it's just for this. We have to get it back for Senior Li. Huo Ling'er nodded. She immediately stepped forward, reached out, and took out the piece of wood. Be careful, the demonic energy in it is too strong, it is very likely to be the reason why Supreme Li Huo turns into a demon, and it can infect others at any time. An old man reminded me. Huo Ling'er shook his head and said, don't dare to cause trouble with this thing. Hearing this, everyone was startled for a moment, but then they all suddenly realized that the terrifying picture was still on Huo Ling'er. This demonic aura would only shrink inward, so how could it dare to cause chaos? Walk. Huo Ling'er spoke. Soon, Huo Ling'er and others left this secret realm. They went back to Li Huo sect first. Because Yu Qishui and others were worried that someone would follow them, and if they disturbed Senior Li, it would be a huge sin. Return to Liwo sect and wait. At the same time, the news of the emergence of the Liwo Supreme Secret Realm in the Kangli mountain range quickly spread throughout the southern territory. When it was learned that the former Supreme Liwo had actually turned into a demon lord, and had destroyed the ancient Tuo Yazun of Taiyan Holy Land, forcing the Supreme of Taiyan Holy Land to retreat, the entire southern territory was in an uproar. Taiyan Holy Land is one of the top forces in the entire southern region, created by immortals. Moreover, this kind of sect usually has channels to contact its ancestors in the immortal world. This kind of power was suppressed by a demon king. However, the demon king with such terrifying power was finally killed by a painting. As soon as the news came out, the entire southern territory was shocked. Could it be that there are still immortals in our southern region now? Definitely yes. According to legend, some earthly immortals who have not yet reached their peak cultivation level will remain in seclusion in the mortal world for a period of time. It must be such an existence. But in the past 1,000 years, I have never heard of anyone taking that step to the immortal path. The world spread the news. Huo Linger and Li Huo sect were also pushed to the forefront. The eyes of the southern territory are gathered in the southern territory. Fire Nation, deep inside the palace. Your Majesty, that cheap maid must have killed Ming Xian and concubine Xian. You must avenge them and kill that cheap maid. A beautiful woman is crying in front of the Fire Emperor. The Fire Emperor was dressed in bright yellow robes, but his face was extremely gloomy. Shut up. The Fire Emperor shouted angrily, do you want me to die? Behind her stands a being who transcends the Supreme. The beautiful woman suddenly did not dare to speak. Come here, bring my imperial edict to invite Princess Linger back. I want to make her the next generation queen of the Fire Nation. The Fire Emperor's eyes were focused. A beautiful woman is like being struck by lightning. Some time has passed. Yu Kishui and others finally confirmed that no one was watching around. In fact, this is just their extra caution. Who dares to spy on an immortal? That is bringing trouble to your sect. They headed all the way towards the small mountain village. Not long after, they finally entered the small mountain village. Everyone in the village almost knew them and said hello. Before arriving at the small courtyard, Mu Qianning stepped forward and knocked on the door. Qianning came to meet Senior Li. The voice sounded, and Li Fan's faint voice sounded in the small courtyard, come in dash. Several people walked in and saw Li Fan holding Xiaobai and basking in the sun under the peach tree. Extremely leisurely. Several people had complicated emotions. Maybe this was the peerless power. He could kill the Demon King, but he could still bask in the sun so calmly. I don't care about this at all. Thank you, Senior Li, for the painting. Huo Linger stepped forward, her beautiful eyes full of gratitude, and said, Linger has used it up and now returns it to Senior. This thing was also taken for Senior. She respectfully presented the scroll and the Vulcan town that day. Li Fan smiled and said, the painting is for you, you don't have to give it back to me. But this piece of wood is quite interesting. He stretched out his hand to take the block of wood, which was broken and slightly cold. Well, it's much better than ordinary firewood. Li Fan commented. Everyone had complicated expressions. This is the supreme object of enlightenment. In the eyes of Senior Li, it is only a little better than firewood. However, they had to admit that this was definitely a fair evaluation. After all, the person in front of me even cooks cat food for his pet with Xuanhuan wood as firewood. Li Fan was holding the piece of wood, but he was thinking that these people who brought the wood over seemed to know from the villagers that he was good at carving. His carving skills are absolutely perfect, so maybe this wood carving can be worth some money. Thinking that Mu Qianning and others were extremely poor, and Huo Linger had a pitiful background, Li Fan sighed slightly and said, since you know that I have some knowledge of this and have sent everything here, I will help you once. Li Fan spoke, then entered the room and took out the carving knife. It was a black carving knife, but the edge was light golden. Needless to say, this was also given to Li Fan by the system. Li Fan held the wooden block in one hand and the knife in the other and began to carve. Yu Qishui and others were all pleasantly surprised. It seems that I and others have guessed Senior Li's intention. Today, Vulcan Town is indeed useful to Senior Li. Everyone was even more shocked when they saw sawdust flying under Li Fan's carving. What kind of carving knife is that, can actually cut the 10,000-year black firewood easily? Incredible. I clearly feel that what the carving knife seems to be carving is the avenue, the heaven, and the earth. Yu Qishui, Wei Yishan, and others were shocked. Mu Jianing and Huo Ling'er were even a little bit crazy. When Senior Li was carving, he was clearly in a Taoist state, as if he were an immortal who transcended the 9 heavens. Nothing could disturb him. Mind. Under Li Fan's carving knife, the prototype of a palace began to appear. The prototype gradually matured, with carved dragons, painted phoenixes, and intrigues. The palm-sized palace carvings gave off a majestic feeling. It's like a fairy palace. Finally, Li Fan engraved 2 small characters on the palace, Li Tian. This is made of Xuanhuan wood. Li represents fire, and Tian represents height. In the fire country, this palace has a better meaning, and it would be easy for Huo Ling'er and others to sell it. After carving the words, Li Fan blew gently to blow away the last sawdust. In the eyes of everyone, they were extremely horrified by this scene. They clearly saw that the wooden palace, which was extremely extraordinary in itself, was blown by Li Fan, and instantly the Taoist charm was majestic and the fairy aura lingered. What Li Fan blew, was a breath of immortal energy. A breath of immortal energy turned a wooden sculpture that was a treasure into an unimaginable treasure. Li Fan turned around and saw everyone's expressions, feeling a little proud in his heart. My wood carving skills are still acceptable. He handed the wooden sculpture to Huo Ling'er and said, "Here, take it." Huo Ling'er was dumbfounded and said blankly, give it to me." Li Fan wondered, "No." Only then did Huo Ling'er react, extremely grateful, and said, yes, how could Ling'er be able to make Senior bother so much?" She held it in both hands. At this moment, she clearly felt that after such carvings by Senior Li, the evil spirit on the entire wood carving had disappeared. Moreover, the entire wooden palace has a rich Taoist charm and is accompanied by the rules of the immortal Tao. She felt that she could fit in with the palace with just one thought, and she also understood the many wonderful uses of the palace. This is definitely an invincible fairy treasure. It can become a Holy Land level force. There are still some scraps here. Let me make you a little gadget. Li Fan then smiled and used the remaining wood blocks. Soon, 2 phoenix hairpins were formed. Well, it just so happens that you 2 have one each. Li Fan handed it to Mu Jianing and Huo Ling'er. The beaded hairpin was extremely exquisite, and the immortality was hazy, which immediately made the 2 beautiful girls very happy and excited. "Thank you, Senior. Thank you, Senior." The 2 were elated with excitement. Yu Qishui and Wei Yishan were extremely pleased to see this scene. This time, the gift given by Senior Li is definitely a treasure that can accompany the 2 of them in their lifelong practice. Senior is so kind, I really don't know how to repay. Yu Qishui couldn't help but speak. Li Fan shook his head and said, "It doesn't have to be like this. It's all a matter of effort. I've been staying in this mountain village for a long time. It's fate that you all can come." After thinking for a while, he continued, "It would be nice if you could tell me some strange things about the practice world. Although he is still a mortal now, characters who complete the system in the future will still have the opportunity to step into the path of cultivators. Although Yu Qishui and others are poor ghosts on the fringes of the spiritual world, their knowledge is definitely better than that of ordinary people like themselves. It would also be good to listen to some knowledge in advance and lay a solid foundation." It sounds like Yu Kishui and others all look solemn at that moment, understanding in their hearts. Senior Li has finally given the mission. Weird things. What is the level of strange things that can interest Senior Li? At least the Demon Lord must be born. It seems that Senior Li is also paying attention to something, so he wants to know the news about the entire Xiantian realm. And they are Senior Li's eyes and ears. We will fight through fire and water for Senior Li. Yu Kishui expressed his position on the spot. Linger is so embarrassed. Huo Linger also spoke deeply. Li Fan has a toothache, what about these people? Don't you just let them have free time to chat with me, I'm really speechless. Okay, you go ahead, it's time for me to go up the mountain and paint. Li Fan said, it was almost sunset, and he was going to continue painting the sunset. Several people retreated respectfully. Return to Liwo sect. This is a treasure. Huo Linger took out the wood carving. Yu Kishui and others looked at it solemnly. Huo Linger said, the demonic energy is gone, and there is a roaring of the avenue. As soon as she thought about it, the entire wooden carving suddenly rang out. The next moment, several people were in a trance, and they actually appeared in a huge palace. Above the palace, a plaque hangs high, Li Tian. We entered the palace built by Senior Li. Several people were dumbfounded. This object is simply a sacred object. Once it is enlarged and entered in Lishan Palace, it will be a training place, and the speed of training will be doubled. Yu Kishui spoke solemnly. Everyone, I think Senior Li gave this gift just to help us all grow up quickly and establish a force that is powerful enough to do something for Senior Li. Huo Linger spoke and said, at least it's at Holy Land level. Several people nodded solemnly. The essence of the fire path left by Supreme Li Huo has been purified by Senior Li and remains in this hall. Let's practice together and make a breakthrough quickly. Huo Linger spoke. She had no selfish motives. Although Li Fan said that this palace was for her, she understood better that it was for them to share. She is just a keeper. Several people nodded solemnly. Huo Linger's heart united with the palace, and all the Liwo supreme cultivation power hidden in it emerged and was provided for the four people to practice. In the main hall, the sound of the avenue roared, a few people in one day was worth 100 years. Time flies. A few days later, outside Liwo sect. The Fire Emperor's imperial edict has arrived, and the third princess Huo Linger came out to meet it. A loud shout rang out, shaking the mountains. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 23. The Fire Emperor's imperial edict has arrived. For a moment, Liwo sect was shaking up and down. Many disciples came out and looked up at the sky. In the sky, a general wearing golden armor, riding a flame-spewing BMW, looked down at the Liwo sect with extraordinary momentum and defiance. Where is the third princess? Come out quickly to receive the order. The golden armor general spoke coldly and arrogantly. Not long after, Yu Kishui, Huo Linger and others appeared at the mountain gate of Liwo sect. Third princess, the Fire Emperor orders you to return to the royal capital immediately. The Fire Emperor will make you the heir to the throne. General Jinjia said, take the order. However, Huo Linger said coldly, a mere former general dares to be so unruly. Are you looking down on me? The golden armor general frowned, but then said, three princesses, although they have a noble status, I am here to do a major cultivation of the cave void realm. In this world, everything depends on strength. Dongxi realm. Isn't it amazing? Huo Ling shouted coldly, and the next moment the figure suddenly disappeared. She appeared directly above the golden armor general. Strike with one palm. The flames are roaring. What? Dongxiu? General Jinjiu was shocked. He clearly felt the strength of Dongxiu realm from Huo Linger's palm. Moreover, he is a top Dongxiu level powerhouse. He hurriedly resisted and unleashed his spiritual power. However, his spiritual power was directly resolved by the flames of Huo Linger's palm. The next moment, he was devoured by a fiery serpent. Ah! The golden armor general turned into ashes. Huo Linger caught the imperial decree falling in the air, her beautiful eyes extremely cold. Today, it's time to avenge my mother. It's also time to establish the first power for senior Li. She turned to look at Yukishui and others, and said, "Everyone, I want to conquer the Fire Nation." Want to conquer the Fire Nation? Yukishui nodded and said, "It should be like this." He jumped into the sky and stood side by side with Huo Linger. Wei Yushan and Mu Jianing also followed closely behind. On that day, the Li Fire sect conquered the Fire Nation. As soon as the news came out, the world was shocked. What? A mere Liwo sect dares to attack the Fire Nation. Is this crazy? No matter what the Fire Emperor said, he is also a powerful man in the Mahayana period. It is said that in this short period of time, Princess Huo Linger has been promoted to the realm of Dongxiu. Moreover, don't forget that behind them is the one who even killed the demon lord. All the forces in the Fire Nation were watching nervously. The news that Huo Linger and others had attacked the city spread instantly. Huoyo city was captured. Yian city is completely destroyed. All the way to the Fire King's capital. Something bad happened. In the palace of the Fire Kingdom, one of his hands was broken off. The extremely miserable old man hurriedly ran in and said, "The third princess is approaching the city, we can't stop her." On the throne, the Fire Emperor's expression changed drastically. How can this be? Next to her, a beautiful woman looked shocked. She is the queen of the Fire Kingdom, the biological mother of Huo Mingxian and concubine Huo Xian. It was she who killed Huo Linger's mother back then. "Your Majesty, please take action and kill this bitch," she begged the Fire King. However, the Fire Emperor looked grave. "Is there any news from Longxian sect and Kanyang sect?" He looked at an old eunuch next to him. The old eunuch looked ugly and said, "They don't even dare to send troops. Don't dare to send troops." When Huo Linger captured the first city, the Fire Emperor had already asked for help from the outside world. He personally wrote letters to the two supreme powers, Longxian sect and Kanyang sect. The conditions were very humble, and he even agreed that as long as the other party saves the Fire Nation this time, the Fire Nation is willing to become a vassal. In this way, the other party is unwilling to help. Is this the power of an immortal? The Fire King sighed. He almost expected this. The supreme power was already the strongest power he could obtain, but compared to an immortal, it was like an ant. Who in the world doesn't know that behind Huo Linger there is a transcendent being? It seems that this feud will finally be settled. He stood up and walked out of the hall. All civil and military officials in the dynasty followed him. The moment he walked out of the hall, the Fire Emperor saw the heroic Huo Linger. Wearing a fiery red dress, she looked like a flaming fairy. Next to her, Yukishui, Wei Yushan, and Mu Jianing are equally extraordinary. Under their feet, the 9 cave-level guards of the Fire Nation's imperial capital were already bleeding. Unstoppable. My son, you really make your father happy. At this moment, the Fire Emperor actually showed a smile and said, "You have such strength, I will give the Fire Kingdom to you, my father will feel relieved." "Don't worry," Huo Linger said coldly, "this is no longer 19 years ago. Your hypocrisy is of no use." The Fire Emperor shook his head and said, "Linger, you know, I have always loved your mother the most. Similarly, she also loves me deeply, otherwise how could she die for me?" True love, Huo Linger felt sick and said, "That woman killed your true love, what did you do?" No need to insult these two words. The Fire Emperor said, Ling-er, I know you have resentment, so I will prove it to you today. He suddenly grabbed the queen with his big hand, and he strangled the queen directly. Your Majesty. The queen's expression changed greatly. She killed your mother back then. I wanted to destroy her a long time ago. It's just that due to the stability of the country, now, the time has come to avenge your mother. The Fire Emperor spoke mercilessly, and strangled the queen alive with his big hands. He threw the queen's body at Huo Linger's feet, and at the same time, took off his dragon robe. From today on, you are the Emperor of the Fire Nation. As a father, I will assist you in governing this country. The Fire Emperor spoke solemnly. Huo Linger just looked at him indifferently. There is no need to struggle pointlessly. Today, you are going to die and be buried with my mother. She takes one step forward. Linger, is there really no room for negotiation? No. The Fire Emperor's expression changed. At this moment, a fierce look flashed in his eyes, and he suddenly said, in that case, don't blame me. He takes one step. Under the palace, the ground cracked open instantly. Below, lava is rolling and magma is overflowing. Do you know why the Fire Nation can still stand today? Because there is an earth fire vein here. The ancestors of the Fire Nation have sacrificed their lives for generations and buried their bones among them. The fire veins have already had spirit. The fire veins together are enough to burn immortals. Even if the person behind you comes in person, it won't be enough. The Fire King roared, his spiritual power surged. From the cracks in the earth, countless magma spurted out, turning into a scorching fire snake, dancing wildly across the sky, and engulfing Huo Linger and the others. The power is so powerful that even the Supreme One will probably be killed by this magma fire snake. However, Huo Linger was extremely indifferent. She raised her hand, and a wooden palace suddenly rose up and continued to expand in the air. Finally, an ancient giant palace pressed down on the flame dragon. Ouch! The giant flame dragon let out a thunderous roar, but when the giant palace fell, all the magma was absorbed into it. Huo Linger waved her hand, and the giant palace had turned into a palm-sized wooden sculpture and returned to her hands. The mighty giant snake seemed to have never appeared before. What kind of magic weapon is this? The Fire Emperor was shocked. That's the Earth's fire veins that can endanger the immortals. Actually, he was accepted by a palace. How can this be? Unacceptable. It's your turn. Huo Linger waved his hand, and a picture scroll shot up into the sky. The next moment, terrifying power enveloped the entire Fire Nation imperial capital. The Fire Emperor only had time to let out a shrill cry before he turned into ashes. That day, the Fire Nation was destroyed and the Fire Emperor was killed. The third princess of the Fire Kingdom, Huo Linger, ascended the throne and announced to the world. All the sects in the world were shocked to the extreme. In the Fire Nation, countless sun-level and moon-level forces hurriedly went to the Fire Nation's imperial capital to pay homage. Especially, at the end of the killing of the Fire Emperor, the scroll flew across the sky, and countless powerful forces felt it. This is to intimidate all parties. The will of an immortal cannot be violated. The Fire Nation has changed. After the Fire Nation was captured, stability quickly returned. After all, Huo Linger and others just killed all the people loyal to the Fire Emperor. The rest of the people, feeling the boundless power, surrendered directly. Old sect leader, the most important thing for us now is to collect all kinds of important news for Senior Li. On the throne, Huo Linger looked at Yu Qishui and said, Senior, what do you think in this regard? Yu Qishui smiled and said, it should be enough to make the Fire Nation's intelligence system fully operational. Huo Linger nodded. At the same time, many sects from the outside world came to pay their respects. Huo Linger summoned them one by one. After all, the Fire Nation had changed its owner and had to establish good relations with all parties. It took many days for most of the forces to complete the interview. Supreme Hongxian from Taiyan Holy Land and Supreme Luo Ming from Purple Sun Holy Land are here. A shout. There was a huge earthquake in the Fire Nation Palace. The two supreme beings from the two holy places are visiting. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 24. The two supreme beings are visiting. Huoling Yukishui and others were all shocked. They immediately went out to meet him. I saw an old man in robes, with an aura as strong as a mountain, and his aura was calm and powerful. He said, Hongxian, on behalf of Taiyan Holy Land, congratulates the new emperor of the Fire Nation on his ascension. Supreme Hongxian was not arrogant and just held his hand. The other person was a Taoist holding a fly whisk, wearing a Tai Chi Taoist robe and possessing the spirit of an immortal. He also smiled and said, the queen is indeed very charming. He is none other than Supreme Luo Ming. The two supreme beings are welcome. Please. Huo Linger stretched out his hand. A group of people walked into the main hall. Fire Emperor, I won't beat around the bush. The reason why we came here this time is because we want to meet that senior. As soon as he entered the main hall, Luo Ming already spoke and said, our two holy places have now discovered that the evil god's messenger has descended on the southern part of the Fire Kingdom a few days ago. The evil god failed to attain enlightenment for the Supreme Being and was trapped by inner demons. Although he has not yet attained enlightenment, he can still be called an evil immortal. Looking at the Xiantian realm, I am afraid that only that senior can handle it. Hearing this, Huo Linger frowned slightly. Moreover, the reason why the evil god appears this time is probably because there is something deep in the Kangli Mountains that attracts it. That thing is also the reason why Supreme Luo turned into a demon. The two did not hide. If I'm not mistaken, Demon Lord Luo is just the weakest one driven by that thing. Luo Ming was very worried and said, once the other existences in the Kangli mountain range are demonized and revived, it will be a disaster for the entire southern region and even the entire Xiantian realm. Therefore, our two holy places want to fight with that senior joins forces. Whether it is the evil god or the thing deep in the Kangli mountains, they cannot be easily dealt with. Huo Linger, Yukishui and others all started thinking. Originally, I thought that Senior Li's purpose was the evil god, but now it seems that the world in Senior Li's eyes is far beyond what we can imagine. Yukishui spoke solemnly. The power that can demonize the supreme, something that even the evil gods covet. This game of chess played by Senior Li is really too high and too big. Ants like me and others can only see a scaly claw. They all have complicated expressions. I believe that all this is under the control of Senior Li, but we should also go there. Now that the Fire Nation has been captured, it's time to go and pay your respects. Yukishui looked at Huo Linger. Huo Linger also nodded. Everything today was given by Senior Li. The work has been completed. Even if Senior Li doesn't care, he should go and say hello. In this case, we will take you two to meet Senior Li. However, whether he wants to meet or not depends entirely on chance. Now, outside the Kangli Mountains, an airship arrived. It is indeed the place where our ancestors achieved enlightenment. At first glance, it looks like a hidden dragon sleeping, and there are countless secrets buried in it. On the royal aircraft, there were actually two women. One of the girls was only 15 or 16 years old, with bright eyes and full of spirituality. She was carrying a boxy bag, and inside it was her drawing board. Sister, I heard that a demon king just appeared here some time ago. Can we really get back the things left by our ancestors? The girl spoke with some concern. The older girl was about 20 years old. She had a graceful body and was very beautiful. She had an ethereal temperament. She had a Jiao Wei Qin on her back and smiled slightly and said, Zi Ling, you are the person with the highest qualifications in our Sanju Holy Land. If anyone in this world can get the things left by our ancestors, it must be you. The Yukong spacecraft keeps moving forward, and today they are going to go around the perimeter. I heard that the demon king who appeared here was killed by a transcendent being with a painting. I really don't know what kind of painting can have such power. Zi Ling's beautiful and young face was full of yearning, and she said, Sister Nanfan, what kind of person do you think can make such a painting? Nanfang smiled and said, there is no need to envy others. Our Sanju Holy Land uses paintings as its pillars. Even if the one who suppressed the demon lord is an immortal, our Sanju Holy Land will not be weaker than him. You should first practice your painting skills to the Xian level. Zi Ling opened her mouth and said, oh. Then, she stuck out her tongue and murmured, it would be great if I could meet that immortal who is proficient in transformation. It would be much better to see how the immortal paints than to observe the goods in the Holy Land. The spaceship continues to move forward. At this time, Nanfan suddenly felt something and said, what power is in front of you? Fias who doesn't dare to approach. She walked to the head of the flying boat and looked ahead. What they were riding was a spirit-level flying boat from the three ultimate Holy Land. This flying boat was made of the bones of various powerful ferocious beasts, and it already had a hint of ignorant weapon spirit. Seek good luck and avoid bad luck. Nanfan immediately communicated with the weapon spirit, but only got a few intermittent words, the great terror, can't get close. The weapon spirit has not yet grown up, and its ability to communicate is limited. To be able to make even the spirit-level flying boat dare not move forward means that there must be something very extraordinary ahead. Nanfan's pretty face was very solemn and she said, we have just arrived at the outskirts of the Kangli Mountains. Here, we are worthy of the desperate situation that our ancestors had to almost die before they could get through. We turn around. She is ready to leave. No, no. At this time, Zi Ling looked ahead, with a look of excitement on her extremely beautiful face, and said, it's not dangerous. It's the Taoist rhythm of the Holy Pen, there is the Taoist rhythm of the Holy Pen in front of me, soaring straight into the sky, it's so scary. She spoke excitedly and said, Sister Nanfan, I want to go to the front to take a look. There is a peerless master painting in front. Hearing this, Nanfan's beautiful face was suddenly startled. Painting by an expert? The Taoist rhyme of the brush reaches straight into the sky. How can this be? How terrifying is Dao Yun to be able to affect the spirit-level flying boat at such a long distance? Unless the ancestor of Sanju is resurrected, how can we achieve this step? Sister, let's go over quickly, let's go over there. Xiling held Nanfan's hand. Nanfan hesitated. Zi Ling's talent in the art of painting is hard to find in the Xiantian world, and her sensitivity to the art of painting is unparalleled in any sect. Therefore, since she said that there was a peerless master painting in front of her, she might have some credibility. However, it is too dangerous to go there rashly. Even if he is really a peerless expert, who knows what kind of existence that peerless expert is? Good or evil? That's all. Anyway, this time we come to the Kangli Mountains, there are many dangers, so it doesn't hurt to have this extra point. Weapon spirit, fly at low altitude and don't be rude to the people in front of you. Their height suddenly dropped. Soon, they finally got close. After gradually approaching, no longer needing to be reminded by the weapon spirit, both Nanfan and Xiling deeply felt the impact of the avenue. It was a mountain peak. It looked like such an ordinary mountain, but now it was shrouded in endless Taoist charm. In fact, this rhyme is gentle and does not mean to kill or intimidate, but they are too weak. When facing the Shenlong, even though he knew that the Shenlong ignored him at all, the ants would still tremble. Zi Ling, are you sure you want to go? Nanfan's anxiety reached the extreme. Now, they were very close to that existence. However, there was a brilliant light in Zi Ling's big eyes at this moment. She nodded repeatedly and said, "Yeah. Sister, just by being close, the secret method of painting in my body will automatically operate. This is the call of the avenue. If I can go up and take a look, just one look, I won't regret it even if I die." She is so obsessed with painting. Hearing this, Nanfan gritted his teeth and said, "Okay, then let's go and take a look." Finally, they slowly climbed up the mountain and reached the top. An oncoming picture caught the eyes of the two sisters instantly, making them lose their concentration for a moment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 25. What appeared in front of Nanfan and Xiling was Li Fan, who was painting. Today is a cloudy day and there is no sunset, but Li Fan is not interested in painting. What he is painting now is the vast land in front of him. In the process of practicing painting and many other skills, he has long developed an indifferent and normal mind. He can paint when facing clouds, and he can paint when facing the rising sun. Everything can be like a picture, and everything can enter the Tao. In his painting, mountains have covered the surrounding areas and are about to converge in the center. Most of the transformation has been completed. Beside his rice paper, Bai Xiaoqing crawled lazily, glancing at the painting from time to time, but every time she glanced at it, she would meow several times. It's so difficult, it takes a long time to digest it just once. It contains too many principles. On the other side of the mountain peak, Nanfan and Xiling were completely stunned. They seemed to have been completely attracted by this kind of painting. This is the true painting saint. His whole person has merged with the great avenue. Where he is an infinite picture scroll, and every stroke he makes is a carrier of the great avenue of heaven and earth. Zi Ling murmured, her big eyes widened, and the figure who was painting completely shocked her soul. At the same time, the spells in her body were constantly running, as if at great speed. Countless insights bring happiness to the soul. She clearly felt that many insights into the understanding of painting were quickly dispelled, and many shackles were instantly opened. It was like an enlightenment. She is crazy. What kind of character is this? Even if you look at the pictures left by the sect and the ancestors when they were painting, they are not so shocking. Even Nanfan, a person who does not practice painting, can feel the extraordinary. After a long time, Li Fan's painting was finally completed. On the rice paper, he wrote the name of the painting, Dragon Gathering in 10,000 Mountains. Thousands of mountains are hidden, gathered together like dragons. He breathed a sigh of relief, feeling spiritually rewarded every time he finished painting. "You lazy cat, you are so vulgar." He stroked Xiaobai's head and turned around, only to find that two women had arrived on the mountain peak from nowhere. Two beauties. Seeing the two people looking a little distracted, Li Fan felt a little puzzled. Who is this? Could it be that he was fascinated by his handsomeness? "Who are you two?" he asked. Hearing this, both of them moved slightly before coming back to their senses. The countless Taoist rhymes on the surrounding mountain peaks have disappeared with Li Fan's last stroke. Now, Li Fan looks extremely ordinary. However, the faces of both of them were extremely solemn. "Senior Qi, I'm going to Nanfan. This is my junior sister Zi Ling. The two of us were passing through here and saw Senior painting, so we couldn't help but come to watch. It was really rude, Senior, please forgive me." Nanfan spoke respectfully. She understood that the young man in front of her looked young, but with such a level of cultivation, he must be an old monster who had lived for who knows how many years. Li Fan also smiled when he heard this. It seems that these two people are lovers of painting? It looks like the thing Zi Ling is carrying is a drawing board, and it seems that it is indeed the case. When it comes to painting, Li Fan is still very confident. Looking at the entire Fire Nation, I'm afraid there aren't many who can compare with him, right? In this aspect, it is not wrong for the other party to call him senior. So that's it? It seems that you are also in this way? That can be regarded as fate. Li Fan smiled. Nanfan breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that Li Fan didn't look arrogant at all and was so peaceful and approachable. This kind of existence is too scary and should not be messed with. Zi Ling, on the other hand, was itching unbearably, and her face was full of excitement. She looked at Li Fan with big eyes, and said anxiously, "Senior, Senior, can I see your paintings?" She was so looking forward to it and so curious. The painting process of the senior had completely conquered her. She was even more curious about what the paintings written by such a senior would look like. Zi Ling. Nanfan's expression changed slightly, and he spoke in a low voice, "How dare you ask like this? Zi Ling is too ignorant. This is an unfathomable boss-level existence. Moreover, his paintings must contain Tao principles and are considered treasures. How can he reveal them to others so easily?" However, Li Fan was very casual. He picked up the painting, handed it over, and said, "Just look at it." Zi Ling was immediately excited. Her heart was pounding. She hurried forward, took the scroll with both hands, took a deep breath, and then opened it. But on the painting, the mountains rise and fall continuously, like long dragons. Hundreds of dragons gather together to form a river. In the majestic atmosphere, there is a tension that the mountains are about to transform into dragons and take off. This painting gives you a panoramic view of the Kangli Mountains. In this painting, you can know all the shades. The kind of simple and orderly, concise lines. That kind of halo that can be found wherever you drop it. Painting skills are like a god. Zi Ling was deeply immersed in it, so intoxicated. Seeing this scene, Li Fan felt a little proud. After all, it is a good thing to have another little fangirl. Boom boom. At the same time, while Zi Ling was looking at the paintings, her cultivation level was skyrocketing. The 5th level of nascent soul. The 6th level of nascent soul. The 7th level of nascent soul. Nascent soul 9 heavens. Perfection. It's just one step away from entering the realm of distraction. Nanfang sensed all this and was shocked and dumbfounded. Sky. This is simply a great opportunity and gift. At this time, Zi Ling also felt dizzy, and she quickly closed her eyes. Digesting everything. After a long time. "Sister Nanfan, come and see." Zi Ling spoke to Nanfan. Nanfang then stepped forward anxiously, and at one glance, he was greatly shocked. With just a few strokes, the Kangli Mountains are all captured in this painting. The trend of the mountains, the hidden momentum, finally merged into a dragon pattern. So clear. With this picture, the Kangli mountain range is completely under control. Just now they drove the Spirit class airship and looked out, but they only felt the vastness, and the rest could not be seen at all. However, this painting is simple and neat, showing the Kangli Mountains like a butler undressing an ox. My God, if I hadn't entered the Kangli Mountains myself, how could I have drawn such a clear picture? Could it be that the senior in front of me walked out of the Kangli Mountains alive? She was terrified. The Sanju Holy Land was created by the Sanju Immortal in the past, so he knows a lot of secrets. It is said that there is an immortal platform hidden in this Kangli mountain range. From the immortal platform, you can directly enter the immortal realm. Since ancient times, those who set foot in the Kangli Mountains will either successfully enter the immortal realm or die. Once you reach the immortal platform, there is no turning back. This is the truth. But this person in front of me. If it weren't for the fact that Li Fan was completely inconsistent with the portrait in the sex records, she almost doubted that only the Sanju Immortal could reappear, right? Nanfang felt like his heart was shaking. He thought for a long time before taking the scroll, took a deep breath, respectfully handed it back to Li Fan, and said, "Thank you, senior, for reading. We are destined to meet each other, so there is no need to be polite." Li Fan smiled and said, "It's getting dark. It's probably very dangerous for you two to stay here. There's nowhere else around. If you don't mind, you can follow me back to the village." It seemed that these two little girls were sketching with sketch pads on their backs. It was getting too late, and Li Fan couldn't bear to see them sleeping in the open. Hearing this, Zi Ling and Nan Feng were suddenly excited and surprised. "Senior, can we really follow you back?" Zi Ling spoke in disbelief. "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert." Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 26. This terrifying senior was actually willing to take the two of him to another place of cultivation? What an honor. It's like a poor man who was suddenly invited to the palace by the emperor. How excited would he be? Although they were born in the Holy Land, the highest existence that can be seen inside the Holy Land is the Supreme Being. The person in front of them may obviously be a being above the Supreme Being. After all, even if it were the supreme painting saint of the three ultimate Holy Land, it would be absolutely impossible for his paintings to cause Zi Ling to break through in a big way. Li Fan smiled and said, "Of course." The two followed up gratefully. They were not afraid of Li Fan's malicious intentions. After all, if such a senior wanted to do harm to them, there was no need to deceive. With a snap of a finger, the two of them would have no choice but to wait for death. The mountain road is a bit bumpy, so walk slowly. Li Fan went down the mountain step by step. On the steep climb, he had to use both hands and feet in some places, while Bai Xiaoqing lay tightly in his arms. Seeing this, Nan Feng and Zi Ling were both surprised. "Senior, this..." Zi Ling was a little hard to understand. A person of this level shrinks from the ground to an inch, chasing the stars and catching the moon. Where can he go? However, now he is going down the mountain like an ordinary person. This senior is an extraordinary and saintly person. His actions must have profound meaning. Let's follow him. When Nanfan spoke, she followed Li Fan first, going down the mountain step by step without using any spiritual power. Zi Ling also uses both hands and feet. When they came down from the mountain, the two of them were already sweating profusely. I never thought that the next mountain could be so tiring. Zi Ling's little face was flushed and she looked very pretty. Every step of the way is rewarded. Painting the road requires not only feeling the beauty, but also experiencing the hardships. Li Fan said, this is what he felt while climbing to the peak to paint day after day, and he did not hesitate to share it at this moment. Hearing this, Nan Feng and Zi Ling were both shocked. It turns out that the senior is enlightening us. Nanfan suddenly realized. Zi Ling was even more thoughtful, and she looked back at the mountain peak. If she had not made this trip down the mountain before, she would probably be lacking a lot when painting this mountain peak. However, after experiencing it personally, she suddenly felt that she could make the entire mountain more alive. She noticed that her mood seemed to have improved. An expert, an absolute expert. Zi Ling looked at Li Fan with even more admiration. Nanfan also had a look of deep admiration on his face. Such a supreme being actually set an example by going down the mountain with bare hands in order to inspire two juniors. This is the true master of the world. Let's go, we have to get back to the village before it gets dark. Li Fan spoke and walked away. The two of them followed him and headed towards the small mountain village. But, at this moment, two rays of rainbow light quickly headed towards the mountain village. Wrong. At this time, an exclamation suddenly sounded, and the two rainbow lights stopped immediately. These two rainbow lights turned out to be Supreme Luo Ming and Supreme Hongxian. They came with Huo Ling Mu Jianing, and others. "What's wrong, brother Luo Ming?" Supreme Hongxian asked in confusion. Luo Ming's face was extremely gloomy, and he said, "The messenger of the evil god, I'm afraid he has already arrived at the residence of some senior before us." He took out a mirror, and at this moment, the mirror surface glowed with red light. This mirror is called the magic-seeking mirror. As long as the magic-seeking mirror is located, demons within 1,000 miles will be sensed. Now it shows which senior in front has the aura of the evil god. Hearing this, everyone looked solemn. Too fast. The other party actually came directly to the door. "What should we do?" "We should warn that senior now." Supreme Hongxian spoke. "It's too late, the opponent is faster than us, and judging from the reaction of the magic-seeking mirror, I'm afraid that the messenger of the evil god who comes this time is stronger than you and me. I can only hope that the senior will be prepared." Luo Ming spoke, his face was very gloomy. Above the mountain village, two dark clouds that had been floating for a long time suddenly dispersed and turned into two terrifying faces. The grimace glanced at the mountain village below for a long time. There is no special energy, just as calm as water. One of the grimaces spoke. "Let's go and destroy him quickly." Another grimace responded, and suddenly turned into two balls of black energy, landing in front of the mountain village. They finally revealed their true bodies, black yaksha. The head is ferocious, with two long canine teeth exposed directly from the upper jaw. The body is tall and has natural green and black magic patterns all over its body. The auras of the two yakshas were very terrifying. Step by step, they walked into the mountain village, quietly, and finally approached the small courtyard. "It feels like a forbidden place." A yaksha spoke, and green light burst out from his yaksha eyes. "Let's go and kill him for the Lord." They stepped forward. However, just by being close, the two yakshas felt an indescribable pressure. This place is rejecting them. It's such a strong field, it can actually make it difficult for General Yaksha and I to get close. "Walk." The two yakshas moved on. With every step forward, the pressure on them became heavier, their speed became slower, and their steps began to become a little unsteady. "As the Supreme Being, can't we even go in?" A yaksha will roar. "They are Supreme Beings, incomparably powerful, but now they are like two ordinary people facing a huge pressure, unable to move even an inch. I'm terrified. What the hell is this place? It's more terrifying than the Master's retreat." There were only 10 steps away from the courtyard gate, but they were already sweating profusely. Both of them were almost exhausted. They all had a feeling of despair. "What is this place? No matter how hard I try, I can't get closer. You must take a look. Such an existence is hiding here and poses a great threat to the Lord." Yaksha will roar and say, "Burn my demon soul." The auras of the two people surged. They were burning their demonic souls in exchange for extreme power. At his peak, he was comparable to an immortal. This is how they want to break in and take a look. Even if you take a look at it and send the things left behind to the Master, it will be worth dying. Roar. The two yakshas roared wildly and approached the wooden door of the small courtyard. The power of the immortal obtained by burning the demon soul is truly extraordinary. The two of them worked together to push open the wooden door. Their yasha eyes have been opened, and everything they see will be transmitted back to their master simultaneously. But, just at this moment, as soon as the eyes of Yasha opened, a huge and terrifying golden claw came towards him. Two burning demon souls, General Yaksha, who was at the peak of his strength and comparable to an immortal, were instantly destroyed physically and mentally. Turn into nothing. Only at the door, two black hand bones fell outside. The wind blew, and the door of the courtyard creaked, thinking that it was extremely quiet inside and outside the courtyard. After a long time, Two rainbow lights fell on the mountain village. Those messengers of the evil god are really here, the magic-seeking mirror has shown, and an immortal level demonic power has erupted here. Supreme Luo Ming spoke in shock. Hearing this, Supreme Hongxian and others took a breath of air. An explosion of immortal level magical power. Has there ever been a fierce battle at the immortal level here? Which senior, is he still alive? Supreme Hongxian spoke worriedly. Judging from the magic-seeking mirror, the messengers of the evil god who came were two people. The two evil god messengers both burst out with immortal level power. In the entire Xiantian realm, who else can resist? Even if Senior Li is an immortal, he is still in danger of falling. The expressions on several people's faces were ugly. Come on, let's go take a look. Yu Qishui spoke, and the group hurried towards the small courtyard. Not long after, they finally appeared outside Li Fan's courtyard. The door of the small courtyard sways with the wind. They really invaded Senior Li's dojo. Yu Qishui looked horrified. Could it be that a world-shattering war has really happened here? Which senior, are you okay? No. Then, what is that? At this time, Supreme Luo Ming was startled. He pointed at the two finger bones by the door and said, Yaksha bones. Hearing this, Supreme Hongxian was immediately shocked and said, the supreme level Yaksha demon general, the Yaksha bones left behind after his death. Two Yaksha bones, could it be said that the two Yaksha demon generals are dead? Died next to the senior's door. He was completely lost and horrified. The rest, Yu Qishui, Wei Yishan, etc., are also sluggish. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 27. The two black finger bones in front of the door attracted everyone's attention at this moment, making everyone feel dazed for a while, feeling incredible. This means that after the two supreme-level Yaksha demon generals exploded with immortal-level power, they were killed by that senior before they could even enter the door? How incredible! How strong does this have to be? They originally thought that there must be an immortal-level battle, and that the senior might be injured or even have an accident. But I didn't expect it to end like this. The Supreme Being died at the door. The strength of the senior is really too powerful, not only surpasses the Supreme, but even the immortals cannot match him. Supreme Hongxian spoke in shock. With such an existence, no wonder you dare to plan and wait for the evil god. Luo Ming also took a deep breath. They understood that before this, they had underestimated the senior. After all, they are all supreme beings in the Holy Land, and immortals are not out of reach for them. Therefore, there is respect for Li Fan, but there is no fear. But, now it seems that this person can kill immortals. I have to be afraid. But at this moment, a clear voice sounded, Huh? Qianning, are you here? When Mu Qianning and others heard this, they all turned around, only to see Li Fan walking with two girls on the other side of the path. Immediately, Mu Qianning, Huo Linger and others hurried forward and said, Greetings to Senior. Supreme Luo Ming and Supreme Hongxian were both shocked at this moment. Is the young man in front of me the one who can kill immortals and kill demons with just a painting? At first glance, they look like mortals. Even if they are the supreme beings, you can't see through them at all. It's so mysterious. No. This senior seems to have come back from outside, and there are no traces of fighting at all. Luo Ming was slightly shocked. Could it be that those two Yaksha demon generals didn't meet the senior? Then, how could they die in front of the courtyard gate? Hongxian was also surprised. The two looked at each other. Hongxian took a deep breath and said immediately, Hongxian from Taiyan Holy Land, pay your respects to Senior. Even if he is the supreme, he would not dare to take it. Purple Yang Holy Land Luo Ming, pay your respects to Senior. Luo Ming is equally respectful. After hearing the words of these two people, Nanfan and Xiling, who had followed Li Fan all the way to the Sanju Holy Land, were once again shocked and speechless. They watched this scene eagerly, feeling incredible. Hongxian and Luoming, the two legendary supreme beings, have actually appeared, and even they must be so respectful to this senior. Nanfan's eyes were like a flood of water. Taiyan Holy Land and Xiang Holy Land are both weaker than Sanju Holy Land, and the names of Hongxian and Luoming are well known to the world. What kind of existence is the senior? How can these two be so respectful? Only immortals. They really met an immortal. Li Fan was confused when he saw this. It seems that these two people are also practitioners. What are you doing here? What do you two do here? He asked. Luoming said respectfully, Senior's picture of the Great Sun Path is so powerful in the southern region that no one knows about it. I am yearning for it and come here to pay my respects. The Great Sun Path picture he was talking about was the one Li Fan gave to Huo Linger before. Hearing this, Li Fan also smiled immediately. It seems that after giving the painting to Huo Linger, she must have taken it out, maybe even sent it to an auction or something. So, it suddenly became famous. Luoming and others just came. Maybe he's here to buy paintings. This is a good thing. Li Fangkong has a lot of talents. It would be great if he could go out to take out some. Thinking of this, Li Fan's smile became even stronger, and he already regarded the two of them as people who came to buy paintings. I see. In that case, you two can follow me into the small courtyard to talk. Please. Li Fan stretched out his hand. Luoming and others said respectfully, Senior Li, please, as long as you are here, how dare we go first? It's so respectful. These people really respect etiquette. Li Fan didn't say much and walked over immediately. Seeing that the door was open, he smiled and said, it seems that the wind is quite strong today. Immediately push the door open and enter. Luoming and Hongxian suddenly began to think deeply. It's windy. Is this senior alluding to something? Following Li Fan into the small courtyard, Hongxian and Luoming suddenly felt an inexplicable oppression. It almost took their breath away. It's such a strong field, it's scary. Fortunately, we are following Senior Li. If we were to break in without permission, it would be terrifying to die without a burial place. Luoming was scared for a while. Hongxian also nodded. The scene here gave him a more terrifying feeling than the immortal level sect protecting formation in Taiyan Holy Land. How do I feel? The two Yaksha demon generals, maybe they were killed by the field here. He became more and more suspicious. The two supreme beings subconsciously looked at Li Fan's courtyard. Is that a flat peach? Suddenly, Hongxian was shocked and looked at a peach tree next to him. On the peach tree, there are clearly dozens of crystal clear flat peaches, with a strong fragrance. Just walking into the small courtyard, I feel the baptism like holy medicine. It's really a flat peach, isn't it a sacred thing that grows in the fairyland? Luoming was shocked. This senior actually planted one? Could it be that the senior came down from the immortal realm? As if feeling the gaze of the two men, a burst of energy came from the peach tree. Boom! Suddenly, Luoming and Hongxian were shocked. They seemed to have experienced an extremely terrifying scene. They were both pale and almost vomiting blood. This is a warning. No. Don't look around. We can't mess with anything here, and we can't spy on it. Luoming hurriedly sent a message to remind. Hongxian was horrified and lowered his head, not daring to look any further. They are the supreme beings. Actually, just by looking at them, they almost shake the foundation of Dao. It seems that this flat peach is really a sacred object in the fairyland, and it is very likely that the flat peach tree has a spirit. Just the tree spirit, the strength is not something that the Supreme can mess with. The awe in the two of them's hearts skyrocketed. At this moment, Li Fan also said, everyone, please take a seat. He took out tea from the room and said, "We only have coarse tea to entertain guests here." Yu Qishui and Mu Jianing's eyes suddenly lit up. They are people who have tasted Senior Li's tea. This is another great opportunity. Immediately, they all sat down and waited obediently. Li Fan gave them tea one by one. Luo Ming and Hong Xian quickly stood up respectfully and took it with both hands. Such a being actually served them tea. It seems that, as Huo Linger and others said, this is an invincible immortal who lives in seclusion here and does not like to show his terrifying strength. I just want to live an ordinary life. Maybe this is the boss. At this moment, Yu Qishui and others were drinking tea, then closed their eyes, with a look of intoxication on their faces, and they actually entered the Taoist realm. Luo Ming and Hong Xian suddenly understood, this tea is definitely not simple. They were very solemn in their hearts, picked up the tea and took a sip. Tea entrance. Suddenly, Tao Yun is fragrant. It was as if what he drank was not a cup of tea at all, but a cup of the great way of heaven and earth. When the tea entered their throats, their bodies suddenly surged with spiritual power. Among the meridians and flesh, some tiny and illusory rules fragments were directly awakened at this moment, emitting layers of extraordinary light. The fragments of rules are strengthening and concluding. Their supreme realm is gradually becoming more perfect. At this moment, both of their faces were extremely shocked. Similarly, Nanfeng and Ziling also closed their eyes at this moment and were carefully comprehending. They also benefited a lot and were realizing their respective ways. After a long time, everyone slowly opened their eyes. Almost all of them have improved significantly. Luo Ming and Hong Xian stood up directly and saluted. "Thank you for your kindness, Senior." The two of them spoke very solemnly. This cup of tea is so important to them. In fact, the road between the two of them has almost come to an end. They have been trapped in the supreme realm for hundreds of years and can no longer go any further. However, just now, the fragments of their daily rules have become clearer and more complete, and their number has also condensed. This means that the road they had broken off long ago has been continued. For a supreme being, this is tantamount to the gift of reinvention. Such a great kindness, death is not enough repayment. At the same time, their understanding of Li Fan rose again. A cup of tea can help the supreme enlightenment, which is definitely an existence that transcends the entire Xiantian realm. Nanfeng and Ziling also saluted, with excitement on their pretty faces, because just now, Ziling directly broke through to the state of distraction. As for Nanfeng, he is the first level of distraction, and he has also been promoted to the third level of distraction. Enlightenment tea can directly help people realize enlightenment and achieve breakthroughs in cultivation, but it is an incidental thing. With this cup of tea, they can enter the country quickly without any hindrance for a long time. Li Fan smiled and said, "It doesn't have to be like this. Meeting each other means we are destined to meet each other. What's more, we are all in the same way." After speaking, he opened the painting to show Luo Ming and others, and said, "This is what I did today. I came from afar, so let's take a look at it." As the saying goes, literati make friends through literature, and chess players make friends through chess. Since these people came to visit for Li Fan's paintings, they naturally made friends through paintings. Moreover, since people are here to buy paintings, it is better to sell them at a higher price if they are seen. When Luo Ming and Hong Xian saw it, their eyes suddenly filled with surprise and they stared at the painting. Huo Linger, Mu Jianing, and others also looked shocked. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Gui Xian. Chapter 28. Luo Ming and Hong Xian both looked at this painting in shock. Picture of dragons gathering in 10,000 mountains. Is this, the entire Kangli mountain range? Luo Ming was shocked. At a glance, the entire Kangli mountain range is painted alive, and its potential is fully displayed. This painting alone is a priceless treasure, there once was a quasi-holy land level sect. In order to explore the map of the Kangli mountain range, the entire sect has been involved. Hongxian murmured and spoke. For the entire Xiantian realm, the Kangli mountain range is a taboo existence. This place is full of various legends, related to immortals and death. Only those supreme beings with no way out, or quasi-immortals who have perfected their realm and pursue invincibility, dare to break into it. There is a kind of magic there that attracts countless people to explore. But no one has ever known the full picture. Once upon a time, great forces came out in full force just to explore the topography of the Kangli Mountains, but this move ruined a large sect. This makes the Kangli mountain range even more powerful. However, now, a painting that completely covered the terrain of the Kangli mountain range appeared in front of them. It seems that the senior has long known that we are coming. Luo Ming opened his mouth and said, so, he prepared this painting. Hongxian also nodded deeply and said, no one has ever been able to come out alive from the Kangli mountains. Looking at it now, this senior is really unimaginable. He escaped from the Kangli mountains intact. Li Fan was quite satisfied when he saw everyone's expressions. It seemed that the other party had taken a fancy to this painting. However, he couldn't directly ask the other party if he wanted to buy it, lest it be too tacky. He immediately said, but what do you need? Listening to Li Fan's question, the two supreme beings understood that the senior had indeed figured out their purpose of coming here, so he prepared this painting. The two people nodded hurriedly and said, with this painting, many doubts in our hearts have been eliminated. Moreover, this painting can help us stabilize a big crisis. Big crisis? Li Fan suddenly realized that these two people opened a calligraphy and painting shop. Most likely so. It seems that the other party's business is in danger, and it needs a real treasure. Go and help. And my painting is just right. That's why they say this. Li Fan nodded and said, in that case, then take it away. Take away? Luo Ming and Hongxian were surprised again. This senior actually let them take away such a treasure map. This senior has already prepared a painting waiting for us. It seems that he deliberately gave this painting to us so that we can do what? Luo Ming guessed. Since senior has given the order, it must have a purpose. We will accept it as soon as possible. Hong Xuan's transmitted the message. Luo Ming nodded, and the two of them immediately said respectfully, thank you, senior, for giving me the Tao map. The two took it respectfully. However, Li Fan was confused when he saw that the two people took the painting without paying or asking for the price. Are these two people so ignorant of the rules? It seems that I have no choice but to ask for it myself. He then smiled and said, pay with one hand and deliver the goods with the other hand. No credit. Luo Ming and Hongxian were both stunned. This senior, surely he doesn't want to be involved in karma. However, just for a moment, Luo Ming suddenly understood. Hongxian also nodded immediately and said, yes, the more terrifying a person is, the more attention he pays to cause and effect. It concerns the Kangli Mountains, and I am afraid the cause and effect are even more complicated, so the senior is not willing to get involved. That's why he needs the so-called money. In this way, cause and effect are both clear. However, when they realized it, the two of them were worried again. One hand pays the money and the other hand delivers the goods, but for this Jianbai, what kind of thing can be regarded as money? In the world of spiritual practice, there is naturally a common currency, which is spiritual stone. Spiritual stones contain a large amount of spiritual energy, which can help cultivators practice quickly. But, is that thing useful to the senior? You must know that the senior can kill demons with a painting, and even immortals who want to enter his courtyard will be shocked to death. To this senior, what we need to show is sincerity. Luo Ming gritted his teeth, and a flash of inspiration suddenly appeared in his hand, and a simple brocade box suddenly appeared. He held the brocade box in his hand and said respectfully, "Senior, this is the entire wealth of this junior. Please accept it." When Hongxian saw this, he immediately understood. He hurriedly presented a brocade box and said, "Senior, this junior also only has this. Please don't laugh, senior." The two handed it over, feeling really uneasy in their hearts. They have taken out their most precious things, but is the value comparable to Senior Li's painting? Obviously not. When Li Fan saw the two people handing over the box, his eyes suddenly lit up. "Is this silver or gold? How generous!" He smiled, reached out to take it, and felt the heavy weight. He placed it on the table and said, "The money and goods are cleared. Thank you both for coming. If you need it again in the future, you can come to us at any time. Business is a steady stream." Luo Ming and Hongxian were even more shocked. This senior seemed to have predicted what would happen next. He is arranging this overall situation. And it seems that he, the others, and even the Holy Land behind him are just pawns of the senior? Thinking of this, both of them were in a trance, but they didn't dare to say anything. "Thank you, senior. I'll say goodbye and say goodbye. I'll come back to say hello to you another day." Luo Ming spoke. Now that they have obtained this map, it is so important to their Holy Land. Li Fan said, "Okay, then I won't keep you." Luo Ming and Hongxian then left respectfully. They walked out of Li Fan's small courtyard, and the two of them breathed a long sigh of relief. "This senior is so terrifying, my back is already soaked with sweat." Supreme Hongxian couldn't help but speak. "We underestimated the senior at the beginning. Looking at it now, he is definitely an immortal, and his level among immortals is not low." Luo Ming was still frightened and said, "There are even flat peaches, he may be a senior from the immortal realm." Fairyland. Hongxian was even more shocked. The immortal realm is a place that cannot be touched. Throughout the ages, only a handful of geniuses have been able to step into the immortal realm. Now that a master from the immortal realm comes down to the mortal world, he must have a big plan. Are our two holy places just chess pieces in his eyes? Hongxian spoke with some self-mockery. "It's not just us. Haven't you noticed that the two girls who came back with Senior Li are people from the Sanju Holy Land in Zhongzhou?" Luo Ming sighed and said, "The Holy Land is a chess piece. This chess game is not just about the southern region. It's hard to imagine how big his handiwork is." In the small courtyard. "Senior, thank you for giving me the treasure. We have now established a firm foothold in the Fire Country, and we are here to report to you." Huo Ling bowed deeply. They have established a firm foothold in the Fire Nation. It seems that they used the paintings they gave them to sell for a good price. Maybe even open a small shop or something, have a place to stay. That's good, work hard. As long as you are willing to struggle, life will always get better and better. Li Fan encouraged him. However, Huo Linger and others were all shocked. This was Senior Li's decree. Senior Li is asking us to work well for him, and we will have a bright future in the future. Several people were bright-eyed and excited, eager to find the information that Senior Li needed right away. By the way, Senior, Luo Ming and Hongxian have obtained the treasure painting, which will definitely cause a storm in the southern territory. When the time comes, are we going? Yu Kishui asked. In the Kangli Mountains behind, there will inevitably be ups and downs, dangers and opportunities coexist. And whether they go or not depends entirely on Senior Li's wishes. Li Fan smiled. What they meant was that Luo Ming and the two would use the painting he gave them to cause trouble. The business of Luo Ming and others is in crisis, and if they get their own paintings, they will definitely have to publicize them. Maybe they will hold some calligraphy and painting exhibitions, auctions, etc. As for Huo Linger and others, since they also opened a small shop or something, they definitely wanted to show their faces on such occasions and expand their business. This kind of thing must be supported. When the other party asks questions, at most they don't want to get some support from themselves. Later, they may need to use calligraphy and painting to calm down the situation. Go wherever you want. If you need anything, I will help. Li Fan spoke immediately. Huo Linger and others were immediately overjoyed. Senior Li had spoken like this, so what else did they have to fear? Thank you, Senior. After receiving Li Fan's decree, they also said goodbye and left. Only Nanfeng and Ziling were left in the small courtyard. Li Fan looked at the two of them and said with a smile, "What are your plans?" It was getting late, and it would be immoral for two beauties to stay here. Ziling blinked her big eyes, looked at Li Fan eagerly, and said nervously, "Senior, can I learn painting with you?" You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 29. Ziling is now completely convinced by the senior in front of her. From the words of Luo Ming and Hongxian, they had already heard that the person in front of them was a painting that killed the demon master. Now it seems that its realm is unimaginable, and even the supreme must be respectful. Moreover, Ziling is very convinced that no one in the entire Sanju Holy Land can compare with his attainments in painting. So, this is an opportunity. If you can stay with him, it will be the greatest destiny. Nanfeng was slightly startled and a little uneasy. Ziling was too bold. How dare you make such a request to an immortal? However, she also had a vague expectation in her heart. This senior seems very approachable, and he seems to be willing to support his juniors. If Ziling really has a chance. When Li Fan heard this, he hesitated slightly. Learn painting from your side. But, I have no plans to recruit disciples. System mission released, preaching and teaching. Accept 2 people as disciples. Li Fan was speechless for a while. Damn, I can't accept it anymore. Okay, in that case, I will accept you 2 as my disciples. Li Fan had no choice but to grit his teeth and accept it. Hearing this, Ziling was stunned. She looked a little silly, as if she couldn't believe it. What? Are you unhappy? Li Fan asked in confusion. No. No. I just don't dare, I can't believe this is true. Ziling came back to her senses immediately. She jumped up with excitement, like a child, and said, "Wow, wow, great, great. Senior accepts me, Senior accepts me." Her face was red with excitement, like an apple, and very pretty. Nanfeng was also shocked. This senior actually agreed to Ziling's request? This surprised her so much. Is this senior so easy to talk to? It seems that this is really Ziling's fairy fate. She was also sincerely happy for Ziling. Although it is said that in the Sanju Holy Land, there is a painting inheritance left by the Sanju immortal, but now it seems that it cannot be compared with the senior. After all, those inheritances were left by the 3 ultimate immortals before they attained immortality. In a sense, most people can only cultivate to the supreme, and most of them can only observe and imitate. How can they follow an immortal? Compared to listening and teaching? In addition, although Ziling has excellent qualifications in the sect, she is often ignored, so it is great to leave the sect and have someone to rely on. All in all, it is definitely worth following the senior. She was feeling happy, but suddenly, she felt something was wrong. What did the senior say just now? Accept you 2 as my disciples. 2 people? When she reacted, she suddenly felt a thump in her heart. What kind of situation is this? She suddenly became nervous, trembling a little, and said, "Senior, you just said, Take us too. Li Fan nodded and said, yes. Nanfan hesitated for a moment, but finally gritted his teeth and said, Senior, this junior is practicing Qin Dao. This senior became a saint through the art of painting. He can't learn from it by himself. Do he want to switch to the art of painting? Li Fan took a look and immediately understood that this girl was worried that she was not professional enough. He couldn't help but smile and said, can you play a song for me to listen to? Nanfan didn't dare to be disrespectful, so he nodded immediately and took off the Jiao Wei Qin from his back. She immediately sat down and placed her green fingers on the strings. Taking a deep breath, she plucked the strings. The sound of the Qingyu piano suddenly sounded, like a gentle breeze blowing, and the tinkling sound of the spring made people feel the emptiness in their hearts. It's like an oriole coming from the distant mountains, whistling softly in the green valley, or like a gurgling stream flowing through the cliff. Even Li Fan nodded slightly. This girl's piano sound had an ethereal appearance, and she was indeed very knowledgeable in the way of piano. However, he also heard many flaws. After a long time, Nanfan finally finished playing the piano. She exhaled softly, raised her eyes to look at Li Fan, and said, Senior, I've finished playing. Zi Ling said with an intoxicated look on her face, Sister Nanfan plays so beautifully. Li Fan smiled and said, your basics are pretty good. However, you are too rigid in fingering, which is a big mistake. After saying that, he walked over and said, let me play on your piano. Nanfan was suddenly surprised. This senior, not only knew painting, but also studied the way of music. But she suddenly had some doubts. When she was at the Sanju Holy Land, her master said that her fingering skills were not proficient and standard enough, so she needed to continue to consolidate her fingering skills. Why did the senior say that she was limited by her fingering skills? But she didn't hesitate, immediately stood up and handed the piano to Li Fan respectfully. Li Fan took the piano, sat down, and caressed the piano. Suddenly, an invisible soft sound wave washed away like water. Play the piano casually, and its sound is touching. Just the sound of a piano made Zi Ling and Nanfan open their beautiful eyes in an instant. The sound of the piano is as clear as the spring breeze, fresh and refreshing, as if the soul has been awakened. Li Fan didn't stop and continued to pluck the strings. In an instant, it was like a clear voice rising from the sky. The sound of the piano is like a holy spring, flowing out from the fairy and exquisite, turning over the white clouds, soaring among the frost leaves, erratic like a god, extremely elegant. Tao Yun is flying. Nanfan felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She looked at Li Fan. In her eyes, she could clearly see that under Li Fan's eclectic techniques, flying kites formed by Taoist rhymes were formed and scattered everywhere with the sound waves. Qin has entered the Tao. Just listening to the sound of the piano, she already felt her whole body trembling. It was that all the cells were awakened and the sleeping soul was completely revived. The Tao in her body is condensed, her insights are sublimating, and her aura is increasing rapidly. For a moment, she seemed to have entered a wonderful realm of enlightenment. Next to her, Zi Ling was also fascinated by the sight. She couldn't feel the real mystery, but in her eyes, Li Fan at this moment was like a painting. Become one with the piano, so elegant, so natural, so elegant and easygoing but with a graceful demeanor. She suddenly thought of a word, fairy energy. The senior in front of her didn't need to deliberately show off, and the immortal aura was accompanied by it. This otherworldly temperament made her deeply intoxicated. At this moment, it seemed that all the worries had disappeared. I seemed to be riding on a sacred flying kite, flying across the stars, overlooking the rivers and mountains, with fairy waterfalls passing by me, and cranes whispering in the distance. The moment Li Fan played the piano, not only the two of them, but also the chickens that were pecking in the small courtyard suddenly calmed down and lay on the ground. In the pool, A group of swimming golden carp stopped for an instant, motionless, as if they were petrified. On the peach tree, the attractively shiny flat peaches seem to be more mature and more fragrant. The branches of the flat peach tree hang down without wind, as if they are sleeping. Li Fan's song finally ended. He raised his eyes and looked at Nanfan, only to see that Nanfan had his eyes closed tightly, as if he was reminiscing and realizing. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 30. After a long time, Nanfan came back to her senses. She slowly opened her eyes, and her beautiful eyes were full of complicated expressions. Just listening to Senior Li's song, her understanding of Qin Dao has already skyrocketed. She even felt that the Dongxi realm and even the Mahayana realm were just around the corner. Li Fan's song completely enlightened her, and even some fragments of the Tao that only appeared in the Mahayana realm began to appear in her body. This is a great opportunity. She was really in awe of Li Fan at this moment. What kind of existence was he? Not only was he invincible in the art of painting, he was also so accomplished in the art of piano. Looking at the entire Sanja sect, there is absolutely no one who can compare with the senior. Even when she listened to some of the piano music left by the three masters of the past, she only had some understanding. It was not like now, where she was directly enlightened and her horizons were opened. How about it? Now, would you like to worship me as your teacher? Li Fan smiled. Above Qin, he is a person who has been tortured by the system countless times. Even in the entire southern territory, he is confident that he is not afraid of anyone. Nanfan no longer hesitated at this moment, and knelt down directly, saying, "Disciple Nanfan, pay your respects to the master." Seeing this, Ziling was really happy. This way, the two of them don't have to separate. She immediately knelt down and said, "Disciple Ziling, pay your respects to the master." Li Fan smiled, finally completing the system's task. It's one step closer to becoming a cultivator. No need to be polite, just get up. He paused and said, "You two can stay here for now." Fortunately, this small courtyard was built according to the requirements of the system, so it is large enough. The two nodded repeatedly. The night soon got late. Li Fan sat in the small courtyard and looked at the starry sky. I really don't know when I will become a cultivator. He sighed slightly, maybe he was destined to be an ordinary person? Meow meow. As if sensing the change in Li Fan's mood, Xiaobai in his arms whispered a few times, and licked Li Fan's hand in his sleep. What a lazy cat. Li Fan couldn't help but smile, but the cat's appearance was getting better and better, and its coat color was getting brighter and brighter. It seemed that it was okay to raise a cat by oneself. And at this moment, Taiyan Holy Land. Today's Taiyan temple is brightly lit. Outside the temple, there are several Mahayana practitioners guarding the ancient temple. Looking from a distance, there is a mysterious light shield over the entire Taiyan Holy Land. That is a sign that Taiyan Holy Land has opened a defensive formation. Taiyan Holy Land is one of the two holy lands in the southern region. It is high in the clouds and no one has ever dared to challenge it. Since the Holy Land was built, the number of times the Holy Land's defense array has been activated can be counted on one hand. Nowadays, without the invasion of foreign enemies, Taiyan Holy Land feels like it is facing a formidable enemy. In the ancient bronze palace, the old men sat opposite each other, and their auras were very scary. Even supreme beings like Luo Ming and Hong Xian can only sit in the middle. Everyone present today is all supreme. There are 8 people in total, 8 supreme beings. Among them, 4 are from Taiyan Holy Land and 4 are from Xiang Holy Land. It can be said that the two major sects have their full potential. Sitting on the left is an old man in purple robes. The old man in purple robes has a ruddy face and gray hair that shows his immortal spirit. He is the Holy Lord of Xiang Holy Land, Yuan Yang Supreme. Opposite him, there was an old man wearing a black Taoist robe. On the old man's Taoist robe, a map of the stars in the sky was woven with gold thread. His breath was calm and his face was thin. This old man is clearly the Holy Lord of Taiyan Holy Land, the Supreme Spiritual Master. The Holy Lord has come forward. At this moment, the atmosphere in the ancient palace was extremely solemn. Now, the great formation of the Holy Land has been opened, which can blind the chi of this place. Even the evil gods cannot sense it. You can open the Tao map. Ling Chao Supreme looked at Luo Ming and Hong Xian. Except for the two of them, the eyes of the six Supreme Beings all fell on them. Everyone's expressions were very solemn, with curiosity and expectation in their eyes. What kind of Dao map is it that actually requires the use of the Holy Land formation to protect it? Generally speaking, unless there is significant opportunity and cause and effect involved, which will attract the prying eyes of powerful beings, there is no need to be so cautious. Luo Ming and Hong Xian looked at each other, and both stood up solemnly. They flew all the way from the outskirts of the Kangli Mountains, not daring to stop for a moment for fear of attracting the attention of evil gods and other beings. At their level, they already know very well that once something in this world is born, it will cause great changes. Especially, the Tao map given by Senior Li. In Senior Li's small courtyard, when Senior Li is around, no one can spy and no one dares to spy on him. But wherever he goes, it's different. Therefore, even when they arrived at the Holy Land, they did not dare to take it out. They strongly requested the Holy Lord to come forward and open the Holy Land formation. This picture is about the Kangli Mountains. Luo Ming took out a painting rolled up in his palm from his sleeve. His eyes were very solemn, and he said, "The painting depicts the general trend of Kangli and the road to immortality." After saying that, he loosened his hand and the rolled words fell down and unfolded instantly. In an instant, everyone's eyes were focused on the scroll. At this moment, everyone in the hall suddenly showed a look of extreme shock on their faces. There was silence in the main hall. The Holy Lords of Taiyan Holy Land and Purple Sun Holy Land couldn't help but stand up at this moment, looking at the painting intently, unable to say a word. Dead silence. Everyone was stunned. Until a long time later. This painting depicts the terrain of the Kangli Mountains. It is so clear, so intuitive, so concise, I suddenly understood why the Kangli Mountains are a forbidden area. Yes, judging from this painting, this Kangli mountain range is basically a great formation for immortality. Tens of thousands of mountains gather together to become a dragon. What a big hand, what a big hand. No wonder the Supreme Beings narrowly escaped death when they entered it. In such a terrain, one can become an immortal, but it can also kill an immortal. For a time, countless Supreme Beings spoke one after another. They were extremely solemn. This painting directly exceeded their imagination. The Holy Lord of Taiyan Holy Land, Xuanhuan Supreme, took a deep breath at this moment, suddenly waved his hand, and spoke towards the outside of the hall, saying, "Fully open the mountain protection formation, fully open." The formation is in full swing. Everyone is perverted. The current Taiyan Holy Land formation only has the defense part turned on. This is already extraordinary. Now, it actually has to be fully turned on? How important is this painting? Is it possible that even the defensive part of the Holy Land array cannot hide the great opportunities and great causes and effects? It's time to fully open the formation. This picture is too important. It is very likely that it involves an ancient secret. It's about the immortal road and the safety of Xiantian realm. The Ling Chao Supreme also looked extremely solemn. Everyone was even more shocked when they heard this comment. Isn't this too scary? Following the words of Supreme Xuanhuan, the Taiyan Holy Land formation was fully activated, filled with inexplicable energy. Inside the palace. With this Tao map, the Kangli Mountains have hidden secrets for countless epochs, and there is finally hope of revealing them. Supreme Yuanyang's eyes were filled with unprecedented solemnity. He looked at Supreme Hongxian and said, Hongxian, where did this picture come from? Everyone is extremely concerned about this answer.